Good evening, welcome, and thank you for tuning in for this exciting episode titled Bold and Brilliant, Magnificent and Ingenious Security Innovators, brought to you by DynamicCISO, a Greyhead Media initiative. I am Ashwini Mishra, Executive Editor at DynamicCISO, and I, along with my colleague, Smriti Gandhi, Director, Community Engagement and Executive Editor at Greyhead Media, will be jointly hosting this session. We have with us two innovators from the InfoSec domain who have been responsible for moving innovation to top of their agenda and taking the leap of faith. And yes, they have been ingenious, bold, and magnificent. Join me to welcome Prakash Bhaskaran, founder and CEO, Securely Share, and Aseem Jakar, co-founder, Exploity and Pay2. Thank you, Prakash and Aseem, for joining in.
Thank you for having us, guys.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure to host both of you, Prakash, Aseem. Both of you have made a mark through your sheer passion and hard work, and have been achievers in the security domain. For instance, in Jan of 2020, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, in partnership with DSCI, had launched a cybersecurity grand challenge. The move was to provide motivation for security product innovation and entrepreneurship within the country. Now, both Securely Share and Exploity won the Cybersecurity Grand Challenge Award in December 2021 by developing some advanced innovative solutions. In this episode, we'll talk to both about their solutions, approach, and inspiration. But before we do so, let's quickly hear from them on their passion for security and what keeps them moving forward. Prakash, let's begin with you. You've been a serial entrepreneur and a technologist. Securely Share is your sixth startup. What has been the driving force for you, and what is the vision that you have for Securely Share?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm founder and CEO of Securely Share. We are about 4.5 years old now, based in Bangalore, 30 people, 7 US granted patents in the data privacy and data security domain. We are continuing to innovate and continuing to file new IP. Our driver predominantly has been the need for security, the raising needs for security. The country is going through some dramatic digitization. Billions of people are coming online. Billions of mobile devices are there. The banking transactions today are much more than any other country, including China. So there is an incredible need for data security and data privacy as we move towards this digitization. That's been our inspiration to create products and solutions around that.
Right. Precisely, Prakash. So yes, digitization has grown leaps and bounds, and so have the transactions across financial services. Aseem, you like to call yourself as an accidental entrepreneur. You worked with companies like Microworld, Persistent, and IBM before you quit your job to start Null, the open security community. What was the passion that led you to try and start this community?
Yeah, I remember in my last company was the IBM Internet Security Systems, and I was always interested in security, both from an offensive and defensive perspective. Basically, always wanted to understand what goes under the hood when, what exactly is hacking. When somebody says, "Oh, this software was hacked," what exactly happens? And in those days, I remember, I think I had graduated in 2004, and I got a job in one of the Indian antivirus companies, Microworld. And I was always looking for people to share knowledge with, and to learn from them. And unfortunately, we call India as like one of the on the forefronts of technology. There are a lot of technology communities in India. There have been.
True.
Talk about Linux community, Microsoft user group, Java user groups. When it came to security, absolutely zero. And there were groups. There was OWASP, but at that time, I think it was more or less, dormant. So all you could do was to just surf the internet, find out people in chat rooms, and then talk to them. And that led me to, talk to some of my colleagues, and one of them, fortunately, is my co-founder as well. And that's when we decided, let's start a small community in Pune, and then let's see how it goes. Right? And then we started. We really liked the idea of people coming together, sharing knowledge, and slowly and gradually it started to spread to other cities. And that's when and and that's when we realized that there's a lot of work to be done. Right? You can't. And I had my day job as well, and
Right.
that's the time when we were planning to start this conference called NullCon. You know.
I'm
So
sure everyone is aware of Nalcon, Asim.
yeah,
Uh,
so that's when we realized, I think it's not going to work out with the company, because we're not able to dedicate our time to Null and the conference, and to to our work as well. So that's when we decided, okay, we'll leave our job, we'll do small time consulting work, and so that we can at least buy food and have shelter, and then we'll focus on the community. And that's how it started. And that's when we realized that this, you know apart from our passion itself, there are companies who are struggling with security. So we thought,
Absolutely.
it's a good mix and match. We like to hack. People like to get hacked because so that they can safeguard themselves. So why not give them the services, and they're also happy, we are also happy. Yeah, so that's how it started.
Right. Quite interesting, and hearing both of you, Asim and Prakash, one thing that I could gain from this short conversation that we have had, that security has been and continues to be the most exciting part of computing, because it has something that nothing else has. And that's the adversarial relationship, that we look when we look at. That's what makes it exciting and interesting. And that's what makes it something that's changing forever. I know it involves psychology, it involves economics, computing, law, and policy, and many other things. Shruti.
Thanks, Ashwini. So, Prakash, let me first congratulate you. You won the Cybersecurity Grand Challenge, first of kind challenge to promote innovation and entrepreneurship in the country. And, 18-month, it started in Jan 2020, as you had said. Can you share what was the problem statement that you were looking to solve, and what was the solution developed?
If I can walk you through our presentation, if that is okay with you.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. Let me share my screen here.
Yes, sir.
Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Prakash.
absolutely. Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So you asked, what's the problem statement? The problem statement today is that there is increased use of cloud. There is no such thing as corporate network anymore. Your data is scattered across multiple applications on the cloud, multiple storage devices on the cloud. People work from home, and the data is on their laptops and mobile devices. So it's really, really scattered across in terms of corporate data. And that corporate data obviously has customer information, sensitive information as well. And more importantly, in a collaborative world like today, you have to share data with external third-party vendors, partners, etc., contractors, among others. And the problem is, the moment you hit the share button, whether it is through your email or from your G drive, you lose control. And once you share it, you lost it, right? And because the ease of use that's out there on an ongoing basis, think about a large organization with hundreds of thousands of employees sharing information externally. Someone might have created a folder a very long time ago, sharing with an external user. All it takes is a drag and drop of a customer data into that folder, and boom, there goes the control. And not only you lost the control, now you are in a compliance issue as well. And the other problem is the role-based access. It's all or none. Once you share it, you share it. You cannot go in and say, okay, this portion is visible for legal department, this portion of the data is visible for marketing department, this can be shared with external users, etc. In most of the cases today, the way the exchange is designed, whether it is via email or cloud sharing, whatever it is, most of it makes sure that it is the authenticated authorized user on the other side, but then there is no remediation that takes place, when you are actually sharing the sensitive information. So the problem now is that not only you have to worry about the security of the data, with the increasing privacy regulations across the country, across the world, you also need to worry about, how the data is being used, who has access to it, which application has access to it, etc. So the DSCI problem statement is exactly that. How do you automate the privacy requirements so that the organization can continue to exchange information without interruption, and continue to be competitive, continue to create new products and services by actually sharing the data and collaborating the data with others. So that's the inspiration behind the platform that we created, and has two major portions. One is to automate the privacy requirements and the compliance requirement, and the other one is to do the privacy-enabled sharing with external users. So the first portion is, if you, like I said, every organization today use anywhere from 20 to 100 different cloud services. And when you have a GDPR like compliance requirement, you cannot expect every organization to connect to each of those services, scan those services or storages for sensitive information, report back internally saying, this employee on his G drive has an Excel file with the customer information. It's just not possible. But that's exactly what the law is asking you to do. And in India, we have PDP bill coming. It's in the parliament. It's going to be passed, hopefully soon. And the requirement is the same. So what the law is asking you to do is have the visibility on where the compliance related data is and who is using it, etc. So the first part of our platform provides that facility where we connect to those services, scan them for sensitive information, report back to the data officer or chief privacy officer, and at the same time provide the ability for the consumers to come in and then for them to enforce their rights in terms of how the corporate can use the data they have collected on a particular consumer. And the second part is the data sharing. Like we discussed, all it takes you to do is, you are on Office 365 or a Dropbox or a box, right click and then say, share the file or share the folder. Now, that obviously leads to the compliance issue. So the second part of the platform is, in that data supply chain from upstream to downstream, how do you make sure that the data transfer happens in a privacy-enabled manner? So we provide the connector, we do the discovery of the information that is about to be transferred to the other side. If we find any kind of sensitive information, we take remediation action. It could be masking, tokenization, encryption, IRM, any of those activity that actually make sure that data is transferred in the manner that is prescribed by the policy of the company. And then once it is shared, we also make sure that it is the authenticated authorized user or certified application that consumes the data, and make sure that the data can be consumed only for a particular duration of the duration, it's absolutely not usable beyond its intended purposes and intended expiry date. So these two parts together really helps any organization to be more competitive, to create more products and services, whether it is in the data science space or in the AI space, and have the ability to exchange information easily with external parties so that new products and services can be created and be in compliance and be competitive. So that's the problem statement we started with. Been a fantastic journey. Like you said, the competition started 18 months ago. had 3 stages. And it started off with thousands of applicants. And, we were very happy that end of the day, this platform became the winner in the competition.
Congratulations once again for this, and what you said was right, data, I always say that the power of data is huge. And, we need to harness it in the right way. And, when you have access to data, you have no control over where it gets accessed by internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, and you need to have a control over it. And what privacy and compliance in larger organizations, is a mandate, and they are governed by GDPR. However, smaller organizations or SMBs also face the similar issue, but they're just not governed by GDPR. But their motive and everything is the same. Their loss of data is as crucial to them as it is to the larger organizations. So kudos to your, the problem statement that you looked at. So Asim, I want to move over to you. You are the first runner-up at the Cybersecurity Grand Challenge. So congratulations to you also. So I'll ask you the same question. Can you share the problem statement that you are looking to solve and the solution developed?
All right. Bablu, can you share the presentation? Yeah. Can you go to the third slide directly? Yeah, next slide. Yeah. So this is what I understood as the problem statement from where I come from. So we have been doing security assessments for over a decade, and we looked at the landscape on how hardware is becoming accessible to everyone. Everyone. Suddenly you have these smart watches and these smart toothbrush and smart roti maker. Now we have actually done a security testing for a very famous European manufacturer of a product which basically makes food. So you just downloads the recipe, put the ingredient, it makes food for you. So and we looked at this landscape because everything was getting connected. So this looked pretty interesting from the researchers' perspective. Like, it'll be really interesting to see what exactly these devices have. So I'm not from a hardware background. So then we started learning. We opened up all these devices and figured out that there are too many loopholes in these devices. And when we looked at compliance and regulation standards, there were absolutely no compliance standards that governed these products to come into the market. So, and if you look at this specific technology is being used in various different verticals or domains, be it medical. I put a scary photo, as you can see in the presentation. Aviation, industrial, manufacturing, automotive. It's being used everywhere, and the underlying security vulnerabilities typically remain the same from a hardware and a firmware perspective. So that got our interest, and we started digging in deeper, and then we started doing projects, and what we understood was that if you compare it with traditional technology like web applications or mobile applications or desktop applications or server applications, typically the threat is to the application itself. At the max, you can infect a machine, right? But if you compare that with the IoT technology, if you can stop a machine from working, and depending on where the machine is placed, for example, if you are attacking a machine that is operating on humans in an ICU, the consequence is not just you can pop up a shell on the machine and display it on some display in the ICU. The consequences is that most likely the operation is going to fail and the person is going to die. Similar is the case with automotive. If you can run malicious software on a vehicle, you can pretty much do anything you desire, right? Which means stopping the car whenever you want, starting the car whenever you want, and you can imagine what will happen to the person sitting inside the car. So if you look at different domains, industrial, think about nuclear power plant. We've already seen this example, which opened the eyes in the Iranian nuclear power plant, the Stuxnet. At the end of the day, it was a series of vulnerabilities in Windows and some of the equipment used. And typically, from a research perspective, it's the same. But when you look at the outcome or the impact that it has, it totally changes based on where the equipment is placed. So yeah, so that was our understanding of the problem statement. And when I looked at the DSCI MeitY Cyber Security Grand Challenge, one of the problem statement was assurance of security of hardware devices, products, and components. And I think that pretty much fit well with what our vision was to build. Next slide, please. Yeah, so if you look at the challenges from the manufacturer perspective, some of the challenges remain same, and some are challenges because of the new technology. So if you look at 0-day, it has been plaguing the software industry for long, and it is here to stay. You will have unknown bugs in your applications, in your software. The only problem is, because of the other challenges in IoT, this explodes, because you have different components of IoT, and a 0-day can pop up anywhere. The next is regulation and compliance. So now organizations, non-profit organizations, and governments are coming up with compliance regulations. So they're fairly new as compared to other regulations. So if you look at other domains like medical, automotive, there were safety standards for equipment, but nobody was talking about cybersecurity standards. And now they're coming up with these standards. Next is the attack surface. So if you look at the whole technology, the IoT technology, it's not just one application that you build, right? It's a combination of various technologies, including cloud, mobile, software, web, hardware, firmware, RF technology. So a lot of technologies, and sensor technology as well. So a lot of technologies are involved, which means that the amount of interfaces that you put in a system, you're opening up that as an attack surface for the research community, as well as the cyber criminal community to attack. So protecting that becomes very difficult versus protecting just one application. So when it comes to protecting that, the first thing that you will do is, obviously, you will do a thorough security testing. And we've been doing security testing, and we know that it is very, very painful to do a perfect or a comprehensive security test for an IoT product, because there are just too many components involved, and there is no set standardized procedure or methodology in which you can perform it. So obviously we had to create our own process. Since there were no regulation and compliance as well, there was no prior guidance in terms of what do we do with this hardware vulnerability? How do we classify it? Is it critical? Is it low? So we had to basically create that on our own based on the impact of that vulnerability for the product, based on where it's going to be deployed, based on the use case. And next is supply chain. Now, since you have so many components, you will be bound to procure a lot of things which you will not manufacture in-house. Like if you look at car companies, they're not manufacturing everything on their own. Most of the things are coming from OEMs, and all different components which may or may not talk to each other. And so how do you know that, okay, this OEM is giving me this component? How do I know that it is secure? Or maybe the OEM that is making this component, there are further components involved in that particular component. How does the OEM know that that is secure itself? So that becomes a huge challenge. Next slide, please. All right. So we are not giving a silver bullet here, but we've started researching on this on the problem statement, and we've created a basic solution and building on top of it. So for 0-day, we've been doing in-house research. We've created a fantastic scalable fuzz testing system. You give an application, it will spawn to hundreds and thousands and millions of instances, and you can fuzz test that. So that solves a lot of problems in terms of in-house fuzz testing. Now, one of the things in fuzz testing itself is the barrier for knowledge in terms of having one researcher who would do fuzz testing, and the second is the scalability. So what we are trying to do is to combine all of that into the platform itself. You have an application, we have the experience, we have the platform that can scale your fuzz testing. Just put your application inside. The second is regulation and compliance. We've built a compliance mapping into our platform itself, and also we're giving an interface for auditors to perform these kind of compliance audits, whether it is in-house for the company or whether it is for customers. So we are looking at the standards that have released. HC, a European standards agency, has come up with an IoT security standard. We have included that. There is an organization called IoT Security Foundation that has come up with a compliance framework. We've included that in the platform. So it becomes easy to when our platform, using our platform, if you find a vulnerability, we automatically map it to a specific compliance of your choice. Now, huge attack surface. This is interesting here is that a lot of companies are looking at solving part of the problem. If you look at from the manufacturer perspective, they have to secure the whole gamut of the ecosystem. So what we did was we're trying to attack all the major components or attack surface of the products, which is majorly your RF communication. So we have the platform can do analysis on a few of the RF communication protocols like Zigbee, BLE, and we're adding some of the more new RF protocols used in IoT. The platform is capable of running automated analysis on firmware. The platform can even interface with the target hardware or PCB board and run scans and tests on the hardware to identify if there are any loopholes in the hardware or the firmware design. And last is supply chain. So whatever our platform does, we try to do it from a black box perspective. So we don't really need any insights into what is the source code so that we can identify the vulnerabilities. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much done with the technical part. Just wanted to mention that we also, it's not that we've just released the platform with the Cybersecurity Grand Challenge. First, we tried to solve it for companies like us and startups. So we've released an open source framework as well, which startups who cannot pay for security testing for third parties, they can use this open source framework within their DevSecOps process and add this for their security testing as well as regression testing. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Over to you, Ashwini.
Very interesting, both Prakash and Aseem. So you very focused on looking at specific problems and then creating solutions around it. So more of having a built-in security rather than having it bolted on at a later stage, which again addresses threats in the immediate and long term, ensuring that the overall infrastructure remains secure and stable. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing the presentations, Prakash, Aseem. Prakash, my next question is directed towards you. As a deep tech company, what are some of the groundbreaking new innovations that are there in the pipeline at Securely Share?
Sure. So, like Aseem was saying, the security is always a catch-up game. You need to stay ahead of the curve, otherwise you're going to get hacked, you're going to lose the data, etc. So what we are doing now at Securely Share is that we are embedding the security at the the most common denominator, which is fonts. Without fonts, you can't render anything on the screen. You cannot do anything at all. We are bringing in security to that level so that the security is not an afterthought. It is not something that gets wrapped around the data, but gets carried along with the data itself.
Could you cite an example? Very interesting, Prakash. So, font security. How would that address the piece?
So yeah, let me give a couple of use cases. A website. Let's start with a very simple one. You are a content provider. Your content is of a premium value. You have subscribers that paid for it. But then there is no telling that what the subscribers do with your content. All it requires is a swipe and paste it and take it home.
Right.
Now, if you were to use the encrypted font to display the content, you are not changing the browser. You don't need an adapter. You don't need a plugin. You don't need to know who the end user is. You could still, display the content in its actual fashion, but when somebody swipes it and tries to take it, it is junk they get. It is the encrypted text they get. And it has multiple different applications. So let's say that you're a bank, you're outsourcing, work to a third party, and you are expecting the third party to come into your intranet site to do whatever, to do, mortgage processing or provide background verification or any of the hundreds of different reasons why companies outsource the work and give access to intranet applications. Now, the data actually travels beyond your network. Granted, It is a VPN tunnel. Granted, it is the authenticated user, authorized user. All that is taken care of. But as we all know, it is two reasons why data gets out. One, it gets out mostly from the authorized users that have access to that information. Two, somebody accidentally losing that information and then make it easy for the hacker or the third party who should be having access to the data getting hold of the data. Now, coming back to the same encrypted fonts, now I'm serving the intranet with that encrypted font, right? Again, nobody sitting on the network can snoop into it. Nobody authorized to use the data can swipe and take it home. So like that, you have plenty of application, information that are downloaded by employees on their unmanaged computers working from home. It could be selective privacy, where I get a proposal, let's say, and then I want to share it internally with 5 different departments. I don't need to share the entire document with the entire people. I can choose, who gets to see which portion of the document. So what I'm saying is, it is no longer the security that gets wrapped around the data, but because we are carrying the private security at the data level, the number of use cases goes up dramatically in terms of selective privacy, content verification, content protection, and authenticated, authorized access. All of that can be brought into the picture.
Right. Very interesting, Prakash. Any use cases or any pilots that you have started here?
Yeah. So, we haven't even announced this on our website. We were waiting for the patent to be filed. We filed the patent. There is at least another 5 more patents that are going to be coming shortly. The technology is now a core component of the Securely Shared platform. I talked about the remediations that we offer, encryption, IRM, masking, tokenization, etc. Now, fonts security is also part of the platform. And the go-to-market strategy is that we are going to be integrating this with all the ecosystems that are out there. Microsoft Office 365, Google Workspace, Slack, WhatsApp, Salesforce, you name it. And the idea here is those 2 things that I talked about, which is making sure that there is no accidental loss of information, and then making sure that you are able to selectively apply privacy, selectively apply security on top of it. So we already have a few pilots going on, and we will be, launching some of the products, some of the integrated solutions shortly, and make it available for the larger market.
Right. Yes, Smriti.
I think very interesting, Prakash. We would wait to see the solution in the market. So Asim, I want to ask you a similar question. What kind of solutions that you are working on, and what kind of security concerns with these solutions address, and any use cases to share?
Right. So I think one of the tech that we're working on right now is to be able to, given a black box binary, to be identify instructions or a block of code which could be potentially vulnerable. It's a complex problem to solve, but what happens is that if even if we are close enough to say that, okay, this piece of code looks like vulnerable, this eventually feeds into vulnerability finding a component in our platform, and basically makes it easy to identify whether that's an actual vulnerability or not. So yeah, we have a very, very minimalistic version of this in our platform as of now. And the idea is, if we are successfully able to do this, I think it'll be jackpot for us. Plus, it'll be good from a firmware security perspective, where given a black box firmware, we can potentially identify and inform the developers or the owners of the product before that you need to look at this part of the code. Maybe this code has this specific vulnerability. It becomes basically easier for developers to fix vulnerability before the release, rather than finding it out after the release in the wild, and somebody could be exploiting it already in the wild.
This seems to be an extremely win-win situation, and I can't wait for the situation to come to reality. So over to you, Ashwin.
Right. Absolutely, Smriti. Asim, so very well said, and the future initiatives, I'm sure you will be able to make good of it. It's really overwhelming to listen and hear you both, in terms of how, as security experts, you have been driving innovation. Thank you, Prakash and Asim, for sharing your views. We stand immensely inspired through this conversation, and I hope our viewers find the same. One key element that both of you highlighted is that the innovation is a mindset. It's all about embracing curiosity, brainstorming, and letting go of what we already know. All the best for your respective initiatives, and it was a pleasure interacting with both of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwini. Thank you, Smriti.